Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project. Copyrighted edition for our video channel. And the executive producer made a very big statement today. She said that I'm not working hard enough, I'm not producing enough, and she's going to be riding my coattails for a while. So she said she's going to come in and kind of monitor what I'm not doing. So, hey, you do good girl. She's such a good girl. That's a good pup. That's a good pup. So, this is a missing person segment today. Yes, it is. So, be ready, because I've got a doozy for you. In fact, I call this one a special edition. Yes, special edition. Here's why. Uh-oh, Huck's getting rowdy. What are you doing? You want to play, don't you? I've got to work. You got on me because I'm not working. I'm working now. Relax. So, because we're just talking one case. Every once in a while, hold on a sec here. Come on, Huck. Leave Dad alone for a sec. I got to do my work. Okay. So, every once in a while we come across a case. It's just different. And this one is not only just different, there's a lot that happened here. And it happened in my state of Montana. Now this isn't in the Montana book because we just found it not too long ago. Hey, get out of there. She always knows. She knows when Dad's busy. Hey, no. She's like a little kid. Okay, Dad's busy. I'll go out and get in trouble. It happens all the time. He's a good girl. But I'll tell you something. The other night, I was watching Heartland Vets. And you know, I like to watch the vet shows. And they came and they visited a Great Pyrenees who had broken its toe. And the vet said that the Pyrenees were known as great protectors of the flock. And let me tell you, we are Huck's flock, because she's always pacing around the house, outside, looking for things. These dogs are really, it's bred into them. It's amazing. Back to the missing person story. So, we found this case, and we started to do the research into it, because it was complex. Very, very complex. And I was trying to determine what happened here before I even talked about it. And then I said, you know, if it's that interesting to me, it'll be that interesting to you. So, here we go. The man's name was Clayton Quayle. He was 25 years old and went missing August 6, 1978. He was officially reported missing September 8th, 1978. I think it's one of the greatest mysteries in Montana history, and I'm somebody who knows a lot about missing people in Montana. He was described by his family as a very frequent but unpredictable traveler. He liked to do things on the spur of the moment, and he did things when he didn't really tell anybody. He always carried his passport. Well, that makes sense because up here in Montana, there's a lot of people that cross the border every week. The border's right there, so it's not a big deal. Clayton was not an outdoorsman, even though he was born in Bozeman, raised in Bozeman with he and his brother Steve. He didn't like the outdoors. He liked hanging in the house. And he had a girlfriend. Like I said, he was a world traveler where he had a girlfriend in Scotland. Kind of weird. But he wrote to her regularly, told her of his adventures. Now, he never graduated from high school, but once he got out of high school and quit, he challenged the college entrance board exams, passed it, went into college, and later quit that saying it was boring, and he wanted to study his own stuff. Now, it was explained that he lived off of a family trust that he got somewhere. It was never explained where, but it was stated that he never had to work. Now, he had an older brother, Steve, who owned a photography shop in Bozeman. Both of them grew up there. In 1976, Clayton went through, according to Steve, a personal revival. It's Clayton. Went through a personal revival. He found Jesus Christ, found Christianity. He wouldn't push his agenda, but he wouldn't back down on any good debate when challenged. Steve described Clayton as highly, highly intelligent, and someone who picked his friends very, very carefully. He never drank, did drugs, and he didn't associate with that world. Now, in all the research we did on this, I could never quite figure out what Clayton did every day. Now, on August 6, 1978, Clayton was supposed to pick up his mom at the Bozeman airport, but he wasn't there. And that wasn't a huge flashing red light to the family because Clayton did these kind of things. We've all had family members that were kind of flaky. Sounded like Clayton was that way. And that he'd take off and just go do something, see friends, and just forget about what his responsibilities were. But the following day, his brother Steve came over to his mom's house, check on the mom, check on Clayton, because Clayton lived downstairs in the basement. Well, he went downstairs, the light was on in his room, the back door was unlocked, and Clayton's wallet was sitting on top of the bed. Now, everything in his life was in the wallet. It was still there, but there was no cash. And the best the family could believe weeks later is that he left with about $600 in cash. On September 8th, 1978, the family decided that Clayton had been gone for a serious long time. And they decided that he hadn't contacted them, he hadn't contacted his girlfriend, so they better report him as a missing person. So they called the Bozeman police, and they filed a missing persons report on September 8th, 1978. This is a hard case. I'm going to give this one to the police. When you have a family who's desperate and you have no leads, you have no car, you have no place to look. They said he didn't like the outdoors, but they didn't know where he went. Now, he did drive a car, and they told the police about the car and what to look for. And then there was nothing from all of September. October 15th was the first thing something happened. Two rock climbers were 35 miles southwest of Bozeman. Carl Anderson and Doug Reeder found Clayton's car. And they had been to this same spot several times and the car was still there. So they thought, maybe we ought to call Madison County Sheriff's. So they call the sheriffs get there. They run the license plate on the car and it comes back as a missing person, Clayton Quayle. Now the car was a 1976 VW Dasher. It was brown. And interestingly, it was pulled straight up to a big pile of rocks on a lonely dirt road, right next to a ravine. Big boulders everywhere. Well, the Madison County Sheriffs call Bozeman police and they explain what they found. Well, on September 9th, Bozeman police asked the sheriffs if they would meet him there. And they did. And the Madison sheriffs that day brought 2 canine officers to the scene, and them and Bozeman started to search that area. At the same time, they're looking at the complexity of this, and the first 2 dogs that get there aren't showing any interest of anything. There were no tracks around the car. The car looked like somebody parked it there. It was locked. Well, the following day, on the 10th of September, 8 dog teams arrived from the Great Falls Canine Academy. And they split up different grids and they search. Meantime, there's a very comprehensive search very close to the car. And 15 feet away from the driver's side door, they find the keys to the car. Well, that's pretty odd. Gotta say, that's pretty odd. Now, up to this point, police officers are thinking, number one, Clayton got killed, car was dumped, he's dead somewhere. And why were they thinking that? Because searchers found blood on some of the upholstery in the car and splatters of blood on the back of the car. Well, they sent those samples to the Wyoming lab, and they were waiting for results to come back. So Bozeman police impound Clayton's car to get a search warrant on the inside and to go through it inch by inch. Smart thing to do. It's exactly what I would have done. They still have no idea. But they're thinking foul play because of the blood, because of the location. Remember, Steve and Susan said Clayton does not like the outdoors. He's not going to go park out there and go take a hike. The location made no sense to anybody in the family. It was a giant question mark. So September 10th, they had 8 dog teams in there. September 11th, they spread out further, and the Madison County Sheriffs went in with technical crews and searched the mine shafts in the area. Dangerous task, but they did. There was a lot of big spires, huge trees, and Steve, Clayton's brother, he owned a photography shop in Bozeman. And he had the ability to shoot infrared from a helicopter that the sheriffs provided, and he did. Days later, they looked at that, and it didn't produce anything, but it was an interesting angle to explore. So canines went through this area for the next 40 days. They never gave up the search. They looked under boulders, they did grid searches. They had search and rescue teams from throughout this greater Montana area around Madison and Bozeman. They were getting nowhere. They had flyers up everywhere. They tried to contact Clayton's friends. They said that he never mentioned anything about going anywhere other than the possibility of going to California for a short vacation. But they all thought that he would have driven his car there. So the bigger mystery to everybody was, why would he separate from his car? Now, nobody said he was in a bad mental health state. Nobody said he had dementia, early dementia. Nobody said he had any medical problems. He loved his family. The detectives tried to work their way through every part of the conundrum they could understand. Now, on October 26th, there was a big release. Madison County officials admitted knowing about Clayton's car being parked where it was 2 months before calling Bozeman police. They stated that at the time when they ran the registration on the car, it never came back as being associated with a missing persons. Even though ranchers had reported the car there in early July. Now, friends, don't be mean to the Madison County Sheriffs. They did exactly the right thing. Sometimes people park their car there for 2 weeks while they hike into the backcountry. That's not unusual. So to have it parked there and it's not listed as stolen, not listed as associated with any crime, and not associated with a missing person, you have no right to do anything. But when it comes back associated with a missing persons, which it did the second time, that's when they did call the Bozeman police. Now, Madison County stated that their first dog teams that arrived around the car showed no interest in the car. Now, that's weird. I gotta say, for somebody who drives the car all the time, obviously the associated smell would be with Clayton. They showed no interest. The blood in November of 78 in the car came back as deer's blood. Confusing, since he wasn't a hunter. So they were at a standstill. The one thing you have right now in the story is the car. Well, they fingerprinted the car. Nothing unusual came back in that. The car was operable. There was just a little gas in it. They had Clayton's wallet. And they had his credit cards. But where was Clayton? What would you do if you were the police? What would you do? Well, I know that the family was going crazy. Susan and Steve had nothing to do but to talk to relatives, talk to friends of Clayton's, trying to figure out what might have happened. Well, nothing happened until January 10th, 1979. About 2 months after the blood came back as deer's blood, and that was per an article in the paper. So if you read something different, don't believe it. In January 10th, 1979, a Belgrade couple and a Bozeman man saw an article in the paper and a picture. And they came forward saying that they saw Clayton at a place called Potosi Hot Springs. Let me explain this. This is very fascinating to me. So first of all, here's Bozeman. Okay, got that. Bozeman's over here. Here's McAllister, Montana. And about 8 miles west of McAllister up dirt roads is where they found his vehicle, Clayton's vehicle. And then about 8 miles north is Potosi Hot Springs. Now, I got to admit, folks, that is a peculiar place. Out of every place in Montana that people say they saw Clayton. If I was the police, I'd be giving that serious thought, even though I tell you that 85% of the time when people make those statements, they're wrong. They don't even know. It's just a guess. So that sighting got a lot of press. And guess what happened? More people came forward and said at Potosi Hot Springs, they saw Clayton as well. And a couple of people engaged him in conversation. Now, what's Potosi Hot Springs? Here in Montana, we have about 4 or 5 hot springs. Some of them are really nice. And Angie and I have gone to them. They're outstanding. Mineral water, temperatures 92 to 103 degrees. You can keep going in different pools until you bake yourself. But Potosi Hot Springs on that map, it's in the Tobacco Root Mountains, 6 miles outside of Pony, Montana. Now, there is actually a location called Potosi Hot Springs, and it's a resort kind of place. It's got 4 cabins, pretty nice place. And the people that came forward as a secondary witnesses said that they spoke to Clayton. He didn't call himself Clayton. They didn't know his name. But he was camping in the heavy rocks up above the hot spring. And he would come down every once in a while and start talking. Well, people said he was smart. And people said that they thought they'd engage him. He wasn't dangerous. And he told them that he was from Bozeman and that he wanted to get away from Bozeman and the society ills. And he said that he parked his car somewhere in the area and he forgot where and lost it. Well, damn, folks. It sure sounds like Clayton to me. Just saying. Now, if I was the police, it's January 10th, January 12th, 1979. There's probably 10 feet of snow up there in Potosi right at that time of year. You're not going to go in there and you're not going to search anywhere. But they did go up there. They did do a little bit of a search. Nothing was found. They couldn't find any more witnesses. And all of the sightings of him occurred in July through August of 78. Well, that's awful strange because he would have disappeared August 6th. So maybe they were off on their July dates, or it's the wrong person. Just saying. Now, I'm telling you, the story has more twists and turns than I can ever believe, but here we go. January 1982, 3 years later, Steve and Susan hadn't heard anything from Clayton. The sheriffs had gone up to Potosi, searched the area, found some old garbage, but didn't find anything related to someone missing. And in January of 82, Clayton's mom's sitting at home watching TV. And she's watching a Rolling Stones concert on TV. And she almost fell out of her chair because as the camera scans the crowd, she sees someone that's a dead ringer for Clayton. She sees someone that looks exactly like her son. So she calls the station and gets the segment of the video sent to her. And to her, it was so much of a dead ringer of Clayton, she went there to Denver to search it out. I gotta say, I'd probably do the same thing for my son. I would. Try to identify the seat, try to go through the ticketing agency, find out who bought the seat. I would. I mean, you're desperate as a parent. I get it. And your life really can't be calm till you find your son, daughter, whoever. Well, there was no resolution to that. And in the end, I think Susan probably felt that it wasn't Clayton. 7 more years go forward. Susan petitioned the Gallatin County courts and went to court in July of 89. And a judge decreed that Clayton was deceased. And he granted Susan conservatory of all of his property. Guess what? Clayton's no longer missing. He's dead. And when you run missing persons' names and things, this is what happens to these cases. Now, people always will ask me, Dave, what do you think happened? Knowing what I know about the case and his behavior before and after he disappeared, he reminds me of somebody who has mental health issues. And why he didn't mean to do harm to his family, I think he drove off on his own. I think it was probably something very well planned. I think he knew exactly where he was going. He was a smart, very smart person. And he took the opportunity to dump his car into a place where he thought nobody would find it for quite a while. And then he got into an area near Potosi Hot Springs. Beautiful place. Decided to set up home there. I doubt Clayton truly understood how hard it is to live in the wild, though. Since he wasn't an outdoorsman, it really makes you wonder why he would entertain such a task when he had no experience even doing it. But maybe that was the intrigue to him. Maybe since he knew nothing about it, maybe he believed his intellect could overcome this. Big mistake. Do I think he's deceased? I do. That area, around Potosi Hot Springs has a lot of grizzly bear. A lot. And if you were going to live there out in the wild in a tent it would be just a matter of time before a bear will find you. And if you don't know how to conduct yourself in the wild, meaning leave no food scraps, leave no dirty plates, leave no food anywhere near you, eventually that bear is going to find the food and it's going to find you. And since Clayton really knew nothing about camping in the wild, I seriously doubt he knew any of this. The story about him misplacing his car, I don't think it was misplaced. The reason being, he threw the keys in the boulders. Now, some of you may think, and I may be 100% wrong, because I've never interviewed the parents. I'm just reading the 28 different articles that were in the papers. They may have insider knowledge that Clayton was abducted, killed, put in a car, and taken to that area. But they still classified him as a missing person, not a victim. They never identified a crime, and they never identified a suspect to the public. Here's what I would say. You have a right as a person if you want to disappear from this world and fall out. That's your right. But you don't have a right to cause harm to others. If you want to fall out of this world, and you know your loved ones would go through hell because of that, tell them. Say, hey, I have my own problems. I don't want you in my life. And don't contact me, but I'm going to take off. Don't look for me. And then take off. At least we know what happened to you. At least we understand we weren't important enough in your life. At least we understand you don't care about us. I get all that. And I wish that Clayton would have done that for his mom and his brother. Because I know for years after that, there were umpteen dozen searches in that area around his car thinking that they were going to find him. Umpteen dozen searchers around Potosi Hot Springs thinking that they would find him there too. Never. So the $1 million question, where is Clayton Quayle? My guess? He's spread around Tobacco Root Mountains above Potosi Hot Springs and will never be found. Because if he did die from exposure to the weather and the elements in the winter, bears got him in the spring, shoot him up, spread his bones all over, he'll never be found. And isn't that kind of ironic? Someone who hated the outdoors ends up in his last resting place in the outdoors. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And remember, we really need your support. Hats. If you buy a hat, I'll sign the hat for you. Right now. You buy it, I'll sign it. And hats, books, posters from our movie, all on our website, nabigfootsearch.com. NA like North America, nabigfootsearch.com. Go there. And please go to Rumble. Our news segments are there. David Paulides presents Missing 411, the factual news. Look up that, you'll find it. And it's roaring there, so I appreciate you. Thanks a lot. Please post this on your other social media sites. Thank you very much. Paulides out.